was born. Um, I could say that domestic violence has been on the rise since the pandemic, and it's been a factor in my family as well because my cousin just went through a little something where now she has a murder charge.
Wow.
Yeah. And this was last year during the pandemic. And we didn't know anything about it. But let me tell my story. I was smelling myself. I was 19 when I got married. Pregnant when I was 22. I had my daughter when I was 23.
Right.
It started out verbally. So basically, we would go back and forth, just arguing about little things. And of course, I was a fast butt. I didn't listen to my mom. Wanted to marry this big time drug dealer, and he wanted from being a drug dealer to a user. So that's when the domestic violence started. Um, like I said, it became verbal until I found out I was pregnant, and then it became physical. It would be nice. I would wake up, he'd be standing over me. It would be nice. I would wake up and he'd be sitting in the middle of the floor. And the minute I come out the room, he'd start beating on me. And the one thing that triggered me was he said, I would never hit you in the face because I don't want your family to know. And you better not never show them. So when I was about maybe, I'd say about 6 months, he had went outside trying to get drugs or whatever the case may be. He got locked out.
Right.
Of course, I'm pregnant. I'm dead asleep. I ain't worrying about nobody but getting some sleep. I work 12 hours, and I'm like, I'm not trying to hear nothing. So he was throwing rocks up at the window. I go downstairs. The minute I turned around, he grabbed me by my neck and then put a knife to my stomach. Not knowing at that particular time, the drug dealer he was buying the drugs from was in the apartment too. Only thing I heard was a click. He had a gun up to his head. He said, you better not ever put your hands on her again. And that was the only thing that saved me because he was saying that the baby wasn't his. Right. Nobody would never love me. I was ugly. I was this. I was that. It was like every day it was something new. I went to work that next day and my mom noticed something. She said, what's going on with you? I'm like, what are you talking about? She said, you're losing weight. You're pregnant. You're supposed to be gaining weight. What's the problem? And I told her he hit me. Pack your shit. Come home. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I said, God was looking out for me because the minute I walked up the stairs, I had an eviction notice on my door. He wasn't paying the rent. Mm-hmm. I walked in that apartment, packed my stuff, called my mom, tell him to have everybody up here tomorrow morning. My mom said, no, tonight. I said, no, tomorrow morning, because he was like, just stay with me for one day. And me being so frightened because he kept abusing me, I'm like, okay, I'll stay this one night. I didn't sleep that entire night. When my family came, my stepfather was ready to blow his brains out. Like, seriously, I'm like, he's not even worth it. When I left him, he still followed me because he knew where my mother lived.
Right.
And it was like, every day I would go to work, I see him. Come home, I see him. To the point where, okay, let me go ahead and, satisfy him by going somewhere with him so he wouldn't bring my family into the fold. But my family was already wrapped up in everything because I was stealing stuff out of my mother's house just to get rid of him. That's how bad it got. So I had recently told my mom, and she didn't know nothing about it. I said, Mom, he took me to an abandoned building. She said, wait a minute, hold up. What? He took you where? I'm like, anything to get him out of the neighborhood from bothering y'all and stuff. He took me to an abandoned building and I stayed there overnight. When I tell you that was the worst thing I could have ever done, my mother was like, all this time and you're just telling me this? And it was so crazy because before I went in the hospital, Mom told me, listen, if you go back to him, I'm filing court papers to take a child. That was my wake-up call. Like, besides the eviction, my mom threatened to take my firstborn. He ain't worth that. He's not worth it. So I finally got out of it. I had to actually move to that's how I got to my grandmother's. My grandmother said, come here, because he don't know where I live.
Right.
And I've been here ever since. And I had to fight to actually keep the apartment because my grandmother had already passed. But they were trying to literally evict me out of the apartment, even though I was still paying rent and everything. They was like, you can't stay here. But by the grace, I got it. I just actually signed my lease about 2 weeks ago.
Amen. That's
so what do you think triggered, it going from just verbal to physical?
Because the reason why he did that, because he knew I wouldn't fight him while I was pregnant. That was his whole thing. He knew if I wasn't pregnant, he would never touch me because he knew I'm gonna fight back. But the minute I got pregnant, he knew I'm thinking about child. I'm not thinking about putting hands on him or anything like that. And like I said, if you call the police, the only thing they tell you is get an order of protection. The thing that got me was he had went to me and my mom worked on the same job. We both worked for the Board of Education. But I had left. I took the package. This is when Giuliani was in office. So I had left. I said, I'm pregnant. I'll take the package. No problem. He went to my mom's job and told her, listen, if my wife don't come back to me, you seen how that guy killed the woman in the family court trying to get an order of protection? That's going to be her.
Right.
And my mother said, oh, really? Now, my mom about 5'5". My mom ain't scared of nobody. It took 5 security guards to hold my mom off this thing. Excuse my French, but yes.
I know that's right.
My mom was like, I ain't no sucker. You ain't nothing but a little punk. You ain't nothing but a crackhead. I don't care. Let me take care of this because I'm tired. And to the point where my mom had to get an order of protection also. She had to get a thing where he couldn't come 20 feet of the house, and he would walk up and down the block. This was after I left. He walked up and down the block, and my neighbors would see him. Like, what's wrong with him? He don't know where Tara is, and their mama would say he never know where she is. The last time I seen him, my daughter was 7. Now, my daughter has contact with him because he found her on Facebook. And she was like, I don't want no dealings with you. I can't deal with that right now. You got to give me some time.
Do anyone of y'all have any questions?
Wow. It leaves you speechless, actually. It leaves a big cotton ball in your throat.
But I tell everybody, if you're in a situation, I don't care if it's verbal, whatever. When it starts to get verbal to the point where somebody put hands on you, leave, because my cousin couldn't do that. My cousin actually been through this for years and didn't tell nobody. When I spoke to her, she told me she had broke her leg. He actually shot her in the leg. I come to find out after this happened, they got into a tussle. She shot him and killed him. So she's going through a lot right now. I think I actually posted the story on my page, but it's been since last year. The year just came up Friday, and she's still fighting. She had to fight for her kids. One of her children is with her mom now. She can't have custody of her because of the case. She has to pay money just a month, just almost $900 just to stay out of jail. So the case is still pending. She actually lost her job because of this case, but somebody took information that somebody else gave her and gave her a job. So at least she's working, but it shouldn't come to that. It really shouldn't. We just had a young lady get killed by her ex-boyfriend. She was pregnant. Same thing, domestic violence.
Yeah, my nephew had just had a classmate about a month ago, beaten to death along with her 3-year-old, beaten to death by her boyfriend.
Crazy.
They flew the bodies home. Yeah, terrible. The bodies were beat so bad physically, and this was not his child. The bodies would be so bad that they couldn't even show
Wow.
I have a question,
I have a question,
Tara.
Yeah.
Being a survivor and also being a mentor in this area, what are some ways we can increase self-esteem in our young women so they can have the wherewithal to walk away or even alert someone that the pattern is starting to happen?
That it takes a lot, because if you don't have a close circle like family and friends, only thing you're gonna do is hold it in. You're not gonna say anything. Like my cousin had plenty of family. She had a mom, she had a cousin, she had aunts, uncles, big family. But she only told one person, but that person wound up telling other family members, but they wouldn't get involved because she got mad at that family member for telling her story. But you can't hold stuff like that, and you have to seek some. Even if you don't want to speak to family friends, get a counselor. Go to look up people information about domestic violence. They have plenty of numbers. The courts. I can't say nothing. I'm not gonna say anything negative because we're on YouTube, but it's BS.
Right.
It's basically BS. It took me approximately 6 months just to get an order of protection. And I went in the courtroom and the judge was like, well, you're still married to him. Oh, I'm supposed to get a divorce in like 5 days, so you give me an order of protection. I'm telling you what this man did to me. And he was like, I'm not giving you one. You got to show me proof. What proof do I have to show you? I have to come here battered, bruised in a coffin for you to give me an order of protection? Like, come on. 6 months.
Yeah, they wait until it's too late. I have a question. I have a question for both of y'all. Do you think it's the love or the fear that makes you not leave?
For me, it was fear. It wasn't love. I lost love the minute he put his hands on me.
Would you say, Katie?
It was fear, and the same thing. The only difference was mine began physically abusive. I was 18, and me being so young mistook that for love. The first, I'm like, oh, he loved me, he hit me,
Mm-hmm.
Then my first warning should have been when he saw me one day, and I was only 18, and we wore tube tops longer then, and he came by to visit, and he called me to the side of the house because my family and stuff was there. He called me to the side of the house and took and snatched the tube top down and slapped me.
Oh, wow.
And that should have been my first indication right
Mm-hmm.
there.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how long you stayed in yours, but I stayed in mine because you're gonna leave those situations. It's just a matter of how you're gonna leave it. You're gonna leave by way of, you just get tired of it. You're gonna leave by death. You're gonna leave broken. You're gonna leave battered. But the only thing now that I've been through it, the only thing that I know that can cure it is to stand up to them, because they really are cowards.
Yes.
They are the biggest coward. Because what I done was I grew in mine. And once I grew so strongly, it went from physical to verbally. Went from verbally to financially stripped me down, trying to break me down.
Wow.
I slept in my car. That was nice. I slept in my car because I wasn't going to break. I was through breaking. I was tired of being broken. The more I was broken, the harder I fought. I didn't have money. I would have $5. I didn't care. I'll buy me bread and a pack of cheese. As long as I had my coffee and my creamer, I didn't care.
Right.
And by the grace of God, I always seemed to make it. But yeah, it was always threats about, I'm not, don't you tell nobody, you better not tell your family. I've had broken shoulders. A friend of mine, they would see me come to work, with black eyes and bruised up. it's one of them things where a woman has to be very strong to come out of it.
Yeah,
Very
definitely.
strong. And the night that the gun was put to my head, one of my instructors, I was in school, in night school, and one of my instructors called there because they had also started me to substitute in his class. And he called to give me the lesson plan. Now, this man was married. He called to give me the lesson plan. And because he called the house, that's why the gun got put to my head.
Wow.
So, I mean, the stories could go on and on, but
yeah,
I stopped it. The way it got stopped was I knew the pattern. I knew it happened on a Sunday. I knew the pattern. And one Sunday, I just said it wasn't going to happen anymore. He was going to die. He was going to die.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you have any questions before we go through the comments?
No. I was doing some research and looking up some things, and I know Karen, I can't even think of your names. I'm just so flabbergasted. But Karen had touched on a couple of points of what domestic violence looks like. It's not just physical abuse. Right. It's also sexual abuse.
Yes.
Emotional abuse and economic abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Those are things that we should be on the lookout for, and just not just the physical aspect of screaming, kicking, punching, pushing, but also forceful sexual acts and, sexual assaults and sexual threats. Emotional threats, manipulation, lies, stalking, name calling, unnecessary long texts. Those things that the domestic violence awareness advocates are saying, those are things are just behaviors of a domestic violence aggressor.
Absolutely.
And then economic abuse, denying access to bank accounts and other financial platforms, not being included in conversations when it comes to funds. Be on the lookout for those things, because those are patterns that someone with a domestic violence trait or you being in a domestic violence situation could rear its ugly head.
And see, that's the thing. That was my mom told me that was the smartest thing I did. We didn't have joint bank accounts. I had mine. He had his. Well, of course, he didn't have his anymore because he used it on drugs. But I never, ever changed my last name because I don't know what it was, but you know how you get this gut feeling like, don't do it? That was me. And then I come to find out so much stuff after I left him. I'm like, thank God I didn't do the change of the name and all that stuff. If I decide to get married again, of course I would. But it's like Darnell was saying, it's so much things wrapped up into this domestic violence stuff. I can go on and on and on about stories, but I'm not. I hear.
So what are y'all red flags for y'all to give, to people that's coming up and, not even begun, their domestic violence,
The first red flag I would say is if it becomes verbal and like insults. Like, oh, you ain't this, you're not attractive, or you must like it. I've actually been in a relationship where I don't have a problem sharing my information because I don't want to jump into one domestic thing and get into another. I actually shared this with somebody and they told me, well, if you get into this relationship, it might happen again. That's nothing to be playing with. The minute he said that, because I don't play with that. You can say what you want to say, but if you're going to tell me, oh, it may happen again, gotta go. See you later. I'm not sticking around to see if it's going to happen or when it's going to happen. And if you happen to share your story with somebody that you're going to get in a relationship with, and months later they bring that into the scenario, dead it. Because it's going to continue. All the insulting a person is domestic violence. Bringing them to their lowest point is domestic violence.
So what's your red flags, K-Day?
Wow. See, I went through it so long ago And because I went through it so long, I have became so strong. Jealousy. Never, ever, ever mistake jealousy for being love.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing, okay?
Can
Because
you expand on that from a woman's perspective on what jealousy looks like, and not
well,
from the male's
from
not from
me,
what you see from being not from where you get it from a male's perspective, but just genderizing jealousy, what that can look like for both parties. Because one thing that we come to realize is domestic violence affects the home, which are both individuals. It could be both male or female. So I'll allow you to expand on that.
well, for me, the jealousy was if a man spoke to me when I got home, I got beat. So
Wow.
that's I mean, I didn't even have to know the person. If the person looked at me when I got home, I got beat. Um, you have the respectful part, because when you're in a relationship, you are going to be respectful, and if even that go for a female, if you feel like you're being disrespectful, then you're gonna speak on it in a way that without that you can talk about it. You can
Right.
discuss it. But when it comes to the point of you got to argue, that's the number one sign for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because now I found my place of peace. I refuse to have that peace disturbed. So if you have to argue about it, something is not kicking right somewhere.
Absolutely.
I mean, like I say, it's just I did have to do this. I had to come to realize that he had to have went through a problem in order to impose those problems. So I had to come to an understanding and forgive him for what he did in order to move past what happened. I mean, right now we're the best. Yeah, well, I would say the best friend. Okay, I can't go that far, but I could definitely be the best of friends because I hold no hard feelings whatsoever. Because holding the hard feelings was only going to hurt me. I had to release and let go.
Mm-hmm.
And thank God that I learned what I did. And like I said, now I became maybe too hard because I was forced. I mean, I lived the life of a single woman for years as a married woman, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I know what it means to have to struggle. That's why he couldn't break me. He took every penny of the money out of the bank one time except for a dime.
Damn.
I mean, I was riding around with no insurance on my car. Girl, when I tell you, but I never would stop going. And people couldn't even tell that was going on with me. I mean, this is in recent years now. I am not talking about something this is when I was acting evil, which is what brought us to the divorce, because I realized, you know what? There's no need of me being committed with someone who obviously is not going to be there for me. We obviously have grown apart. You're still going to be bound down by contract to a certain extent. And, all of the time that I was accused of cheating on, you now see that you had one hell of a wife. And let it go. So I feel like I'm being blessed for being the strong person that I am.
Mm-hmm.
Queen Peach wanted to ask y'all, what about, did y'all have problems with what you wore?
Well, what you wear? Yes.
Oh, yeah. Of course. Yes. What you breathe to, girl? What you talking about?
Exactly.
How to breathe.
The
when
way
to breathe.
you walk, the way you talk, the way you breathe, the way you sleep.
You
What
can.
you
I'm
put on
telling
your
you.
body when you get out the shower, the whole
smelling
Yeah.
drawers when you come in. Looking at mileage on cars and stuff.
smelling you, the
Looking at
whole. I
smell.
went and here I am with a big belly. What am I doing? Like seriously, he would smell me coming in the door. I'm at work. What do you mean? He said it takes you an hour to get here and an hour to get back. If you're a minute late, I'm smelling you. Well, guess what? You be smelling every day because the trains don't run like that. Sorry. And he would. Every single day he would smell me. I'm like, I don't believe this. I don't believe I'm actually going through this.
Let me tell you, I was 5 minutes late one day coming from work, and I gave my sister-in-law, who was married to his brother, a ride home every day. And I was 5 minutes late. And we lived up some apartments at that time. We weren't even married at that time, because now that's one thing I will say. He didn't hit me. He hit me one time when we were married. That's when I stopped him with the knife. But I came home one day and I was 5 minutes late for whatever reason. It wasn't anything. I think I stopped by the store. But anyway, we lived up 16th flight of stairs. And when I walked up those stairs, he opened that door and I saw the look in his eyes, and rather to face what I had to face going into that apartment. I kid y'all not. I jumped from the top of those stairs.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. I jumped from the top of those stairs, ran and got in my car. He chased the car. He tried to reach into the car to get me. And been through some shit. That's all I can say. Been through some shit.
It's more details, but I'm not even going to get into it.
This can be a 3-part show right here.
Yes, definitely.
Mel, can you go through some of the comments?
Yeah, actually, yeah. Just reading the stories, Angela said I was in an abusive marriage and relationship. Like Karen, I had a gun put to my head, but he pulled the trigger, and I'm here by the grace of God. But look at us now, triumphing with a story. That's one.
That's
we
right.
have another one, Cheryl Holiday, who said I also was in an abusive relationship. That's why today I don't like anyone raising their voice at me. PTSD is very, very prevalent in a lot of these situations. Queen Peach again says, my daughter experienced domestic violence. I'm blessed she came to me for help. Her fears were holding her back. I told her and my grands to come home. The constant message in that is it's constant. It's not just 1 in 55 million people. It's 1 in 2 people are victims, have been a victim, or know someone that has been a victim of domestic violence.
Every second.
Every second. And that's crazy because what's the old adage that every minute a baby is born?
Right.
That's every minute. So every second, that's more times than we are producing.
And it's gotten much worse. It's gotten much worse since the pandemic. It's gotten much worse.
It has. Because they're stuck in the house more now. And see, that comes along with what I said in the beginning of the show about dusting off those particles. Those dark spirits get in there. You don't get them dark spirits off of you and from around you.
Absolutely.
That darkness.
And I'm going to be honest with you guys. I actually just started seeking therapy in 2019.
I never had therapy.
I had to, because it was like PTSD, like she said, like he was saying, little things would trigger me. And if I'm sitting there and just literally bawling my eyes out and people are like, what's wrong with you? When he came back into the picture, when he started getting in contact with my daughter, all that stuff came back. Right. So I had no other choice. I said, I got to get some help.
You'll never heal from it.
I'll never heal from it. But now I am. And the bad part about it, when I was pregnant, my daughter had reflections of what I went through, because she used to constantly cry for hours
Oh,
until she was like 2 months.
wow.
In the evening time, like during the day, she would be fine. In the evening, from like 9 to like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, not normal baby crying. I mean, just consistently crying.
Oh.
And the doctor told me that would happen.
Something that struck a chord with me that you both ladies both shared is when we asked the question about self-esteem, but then you also you said that they felt inferior. There was an inferiority over you. And they made you feel less of yourself. They took things from you to make you feel belittled or belittle you with disrespectful comments and actions that made you feel like you needed them. I know me and T, I know T can share probably the same sentiments when we say one of the things that we look for in a mate, a woman, someone who we're going to spend our time with, is someone who brings something to the table. That's a narrative nowadays, right? What do you bring to the table? And one of the things that I look for, I'm sure he probably feels the same sentiments, is self-esteem and a love for yourself, right? When you love yourself, and I know all you ladies do, I'm not saying you don't, and I'm not saying at that point you didn't, but when you have a vigor about yourself and you know who you are, you know your strengths, and you're true to yourself, no one can kind of play on that. Right. And I see that strength in you ladies, hence the reason why we have such a dynamic panel, have such a dynamic family in our Sunday Night Wine Down, just the pure strength. But I want to say that to ladies out here, stop putting yourselves out there for someone to take care of you and be your own care. No matter what, if somebody walks away from you, somebody does something to you, you can always pick up your shit and you can leave and never not depend on nobody. And that makes that person, it shouldn't be like this, but they understand I can't just do and say whatever I want. Right? Because I'm going to lose probably the best thing that's a part of me, and that's that person, right? When you have strength, it's hard to break that.
Amen.
Because you speak up for y'all start to speak up. Your dialogue is a lot different in arguments and conversations. Your moods and your whole moxie is just a whole different when you know what you got going on for yourself, and you know at any moment, I don't need this, I can go. Right? And I want to say that to ladies out there, please stop just wanting to be in a situation just because it's a situation. Be in it because it's meaningful, it's productive, it's growth and strengthening for both, and not just existing. Don't come to the party just with your bag in your hand. Come with something that will reinforce your presence and let people know that you are there and they can't take advantage of it.
That's right.
One other thing. To the family members and friends that are on the outside looking in, because we can kind of see when things are wrong. We kind of try to give you the space and opportunity you need to come to us. What are things that we can do to help those that are involved in this? As far as giving a shoulder, what things can we do? And then we're going to let that be the last question and topic, because we got to move on to the shit starter, which is ideology. And then we're going, because this is going to be a 3-part series that's going to lead us up into Domestic Violence Week. So this is just part 1 of the dialogue.
Well, for me, in actuality, my sister was the one that noticed everything. My sister was on it. She said, okay, what's going on? Because I see things that you think I don't see, because she's seen a bruise on me. But she didn't tell my mom. So every weekend, my sister would come over there. That's what my weekends with my sister. I think that's why I named my daughter after my sister, because they act just alike. But not only that, my sister was my savior. Because I don't think, if she wasn't there, I don't think I would have made it. But if you see something, if you get a little inkling of somebody in your family, whether it's a friend, family, whomever, getting abused, ask them. If you don't ask, if they don't want to answer that question, just keep eye on them. Just look for things that change. It could be something in the house. You could even if they have children and the children are witnessing this thing, they can actually pull the child aside. You may not get the answer you want, but you can tell. It's just like little things that you notice. With one of my friends, actually, her daughter used to sit by me like she was running for her life and hold on to me. I'm like, what's wrong? And she's like, can I go home with you? And I'm like, why? She said, because mommy and daddy always arguing. I get tired of it. I'm like, they're arguing about what? And when the minute he would walk in the room, she would shut up. So I had to ask my friend, listen, what's going on? Because you know I've been through this, so I know what's going on. And she was like, no, we just be arguing. I said, you can't argue in front of her. If you're going to argue, take it outside. Don't do it in front of her because it affects the child. You don't realize it, but it does. Put it like this. I swore I wasn't going to never get an abusive relationship because I seen my mom go through it. I seen my aunt go through it for 20-something years. And my mom, she's a tough cookie, I tell you. She raised two girls going through domestic violence for like maybe, it didn't last but only 3 months. My mom wasn't playing. The minute he hit her, she swung at him. And she didn't swing at him empty-handed. Trust me. A whole machete missed him by that much. She was not playing. So it became more verbal. The minute that happened, he didn't hit her anymore. But he became verbal to the point my mom's like, I can't take it no more. She changed the locks, had the landlord change the locks in the building. That was it. But
man, don't tell no more stories. You might get her locked up. I'm from Brooklyn, so we don't want no snitching on her. Nah, I'm joking.
My mom good.
But one telltale sign I would like to tell people to look for, your close family members, you know how they are.
Mm-hmm.
You see them come around you with long sleeves on, and it is hot. You see them sitting all the time, holding themselves like this or like this. If they're always holding themselves, that is tension.
That's security. That's their own security.
That is that security. That is that security. Look for things like that. Are they going to open up to you? They probably won't. But what you need to start doing is doing drive-bys up to their house. Now, like me, I don't know, it may get you beat more. Mine came home one day because my brother and his best friend, who was just like a brother to me, was there when he got there. I got beat and told that my brother, that no man, including my brother or my daddy, could ever come to his house. He's not there.
Wow.
Well, ladies, we definitely appreciate